Let's try macrame weaving. Okay, so I bought this kit a little while ago. It was topping up an order to get the free delivery, as you do. But it's been sitting around waiting to be done for a while. So it's a combination of macrame and weaving, both of which I've dabbled in from time to time. Part of the reason it's been hanging around for a while, though, is if you see in the picture, there's this lovely driftwoody stick that they've worked off of. There's no stick included in the kit. I have had a look in the kit previously. I'll show you what's in there in a minute. So yeah, it took me a little while to find sticks of a suitable size. So I bought these 3 as a little set. The biggest one is the one that's most like the size that they're talking about. But one of these smaller ones, this one, I think is the most attractive one. So I'm probably going to work off that one. It's got a little bit more detail to it. I mean, I think some of them have been added in looking at the ends. I mean, I could be wrong, but these grooves don't go quite to the end of the stick, so they may be embellished. But there's this nice little detail at the end, which the others don't have. They're just plain sticks. So I'm probably going to use this one to weave off of. As I say, it's a little bit smaller than the instructions say in terms of diameter, but it does look to be more sort of in line with the size of what they've used in the picture. It's obviously a bit straighter, but it's got a little bit more decorative details, so that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to put that to one side and say that's the one thing that didn't come in the kit. They expect you to find the stick yourself. So if I open this up, take the lid off completely. I didn't do that before. There we go. Okay, so it's nicely packaged. I say I have had a look inside previously, so things are not quite in the order that they were presented. I've moved the instructions around, for instance. So we've got this nice tissue paper. There's the pattern and some instructions for macrame knots included, and a little plastic tapestry needle. And then we've got macrame cord, coloured yarn, that's probably some sort of merino yarn, chunky weight, and then we've got beads and an S hook. So I imagine the S hook is there to help you hang it up because there's no hanging loop on the rod itself. So yeah, the size of stick that they suggested, I'm pretty sure they said 3 centimetres. That would not fit that S hook. Yeah, 35 centimetre by 3 centimetre pole is what they say. That S hook is not going to take a 3 centimetre pole. It might possibly take the one that I've picked. We'll see. I might just attach a hanging loop when I'm done. We'll see. Okay, so that's all the bits and pieces. Yeah, that's just the bottom of the box showing through there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach my stick to the back of a chair, because I found with macrame that things move around a lot. So I'm going to use some cotton thread that I've got to use as a drive band for my spinning wheel when I finally get that fixed. I'll use that to attach stick to a chair. Then the work is not going to move around as I'm working on it. I have no idea how long it's going to take. It's meant to be an easy pattern. It doesn't look like it's huge. They do say that you need a comb. Yeah, so you need scissors, tape measure, comb, wooden pole. So I've got the pole. I will have a comb somewhere. I've also got tape measures lying around and scissors and stuff. So something to comb out the tassels at the bottom. So it doesn't look like it's the hugest piece of weaving macrame, so it shouldn't take overly long, I wouldn't have thought. There's a variety of stitches in there. So yes, we'll see how far we get today with it. Okay, so I've got my pole attached to the chair. Turns out the S hook in the kit was designed for you to, or it was there for you to use to hold your work in place while you're working on it. Couple of issues with this. This pole is not the 3cm diameter that was called for in the kit, but I don't think the one that they used on the picture was either. And the S hook doesn't fit around this, so you'd have to tie it onto a piece of string anyway. Second issue, there's only one S hook, so you're holding it in the middle, which means that it's not holding it stable, it's moving around, it's wobbling because it's only on a central pivot point. So I've gone a different route. Now I've used the cotton that I've got for drive band for the spinning wheel. So it's a thin cotton, but it's, obviously cotton is strong, and I'm using it at both ends. So I've used a lark's head knot on either end, and then I've tied it around the top of the back of my chair. I should really have tied it around here as well, because the knots slide. So it's not being held as high as I'd hoped, but that's fine. Once I've done the first couple of rows, I should be able to just move the pole up to the top and deal with it that way, and raise the work that way. So I've cut my lengths of macrame cord and I've put the first half on already. So let's get the remaining half on, and then we'll start with the main knotting of the project. And the instructions have you do the macrame work first, so the knotting first, and then the weaving afterwards, which, you know, makes sense. You're leaving space in the macrame for the weaving. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I'm just using lark's head knots to attach my macrame cord to the pole. So I've got the centre point of my cord going up behind the pole, over the top, bring the ends through, snug it up. So it's a nice simple knot. Obviously I'm making sure that I have got the centre point of each bit of cord before I put it on there. And I'll make sure that everything is lined up before I start the next bit of knotting, which I believe is square knots, but I'll need to refer back to the pattern for that, and I'll also need to refer to the instructions of how to make the knots, just to remind myself how to make the macrame square knot, because it's been a while since I've done it. I mean, I remember the basics of it, I think. I just want to sort of double check, make sure I'm doing it in the right order. And there's about 20 or so rows in the macrame portion of the pattern, so it's not a huge pattern. So hopefully I'll get the knotting done today, if not the weaving. The weaving really won't take long at all, so bodes well for me being able to get this video out this weekend, because we are already on Thursday. Life got a bit lifey last week, so I didn't get anything filmed. Life does that, and that's okay. So loop behind the pole, ends through, snug it up. Okay, so I'm going to carry on watching YouTube whilst I get the rest of these on and evened out, and I'll come back to you once we're into the main knotting portion of the project. Okay, so the square knot is worked over 4 bits of cord. So the outer 2 are tied around the inner 2. So you end up with essentially a reef knot around the outside of the inner 2. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing there. So the first step is you take the outside left cord, you lay it across the middle 2 and behind the outer right one. Then you take the right one behind the middle 2 and through the little loop that's left on the left, and you pull them tight. Snug them, well, I say tight, you snug them up to where you want them to be. Then you take the outside right cord, lay it over the top of the middle 2 and under the one on the left. Take the left one under the middle 2 out through the loop on the right and snug that one up. And you do that for however many you need in your pattern. I've got some cords laid over the top of the back of the chair there because they're not being square knotted, so I counted them out at the beginning of the row. So left, over, right, under and through, snug it up, right, over, left, under and through. So I'm going to keep working those knots until my instructions tell me I need to do something different, which is another 3-ish rows, I think. So now we've got the initial square knots in place, and we've got a row of clove hitches, horizontal clove hitches, coming across here. They had to add in an extra length of cord to do that. So at the moment that's tied off up here, just because this one at the end is not secure yet. It won't be secure until I've worked a little bit further down, I wouldn't have thought, because the way the clove hitch works is you just sort of wrap it around the leader cord. So I now need to do another one over here, sort of scooping down this way. That's the tail end of that, so I'll pop that out of the way. So I need to find the right cord. So cord 24, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. 1, 2, 3, 8, 15, 16, 17, 20, 1, 2, 3. Yep, so that's my new leader cord, and it's going to be coming over this way. So I'm going to take my next cord, and it comes from behind the leader cord, over the top and through, and then we're going to snug that up there. And I'm going to work the next one a little bit longer. And this one was easier to sort of place because you're just following the square knots. Whereas this one we're making a area to weave in later. So it needs to give a bit of a gap between it and the clove hitches above, so that I've got room to manoeuvre. So yeah, the clove hitch is a nice easy knot to work. Just going to reference the sample picture. So it's going to scoop around and meet up back again at this side. So I don't want to go down too far. So you should be able to start seeing a shape appearing between the lines of clove hitches. Okay, so there we have space there for weaving in later. So I've got another line of clove hitches to do coming down this way, and then some more square knots. So I'll come back to you in a bit when I'm ready to put some beads on. Okay, so there's not masses left to do now, as far as I can tell. I've got a few steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 steps left for the macrame bit. So the current point that we're at is we're attaching beads, so hopefully you'll be able to see that there. I haven't knotted anything underneath it, I've just slid the bead on, and it seems to be holding well, so that's good to know. I have specific cords to put the beads on, so I'm following the pattern there. So this is the next pair to put on to a bead, and then once I've got the beads on, it's another row of horizontal clove hitch knots. So I've got a cord to add in like I did up here to do that underneath these, and that'll secure these in place. Then we've got some more square knots and some more clove hitches, a few more beads. So yeah, it's a little bit more of the same really. So we're just going to keep working this through. That was 6 and 7. Next one is in 10 and 11. 10 and 11. So I'm quite impressed that the beads are just sort of staying there. I guess it's because they're putting 2 cords through, and they are wooden beads, so they're not smooth on the inside. So I'm going to continue working through these knotting steps, and I'll come back to you once the macrame bit is finished and we're ready for the weaving portion of this project. Okay, so I've done all the knotting stuff and put the beads on, and I've woven in the ends of the additional cords that were put in for the horizontal clove hitch sections. I've done the first bit of weaving This was a cream, so it's very much the same colour as the cord, so it doesn't really show up so well on camera, so I thought best do that off camera. So this is just a over-under plain weave, under 1/2. I'm going to do the same in this section here, and then a variation there, and then we've got something else to go in here. So I've got my needle threaded up, so the needle is helpful with this, and I'm just going to go from one end and fill the gaps. So we've left these voids when we were knotting, which is where all the weaving is going. Not all of the voids are going to get filled. This bit at the bottom here is going to be left as is. And I'm making sure I leave a little tail at the start to weave in later. Really starting to come together. So I'm just going to weave up to the square knots, and then I'll turn around and come back the other way. So that's my first pass in. So I'm going to come over to making sure that I go over the cord that was I went under on the previous pass, all the way back again. So yeah, weaving's a fairly simple, straightforward concept. And I've still got tails hanging down from where I wove in the ends of the cording, but we'll get that sorted out on the way back. So some of them will get caught in as I'm weaving, others will just tidy up when I weave in the ends from the weaving. I've come up the wrong side of that one there, so let's just scoot back under it. It's not complicated, but I do think it's probably easier, well, I know it's easier, I find it easier to weave when the warp is under tension. Obviously there's no weight on the bottom of this macrame piece, macrame piece, however you say it. So there's no tension from gravity. And you could put beads on the bottom if you wanted, I suppose. And that would give it a bit of tension whilst you're doing the weaving. I'm also using the needle as I'm working my way through to just push that weft down a little bit so that everything sits nicely. I'm only going to get a couple of passes in at this far right end because of the positioning of those clove hitches, but I am going to come back and fill in some more here where we've got that upward curve. So I'm just going to run it long round the back to where I want it to come out. So actually we'll put one there. And obviously I'm not going to put it too tight there, so I don't want to affect the tension. taking care to make sure that the cord I'm going underneath is the same one that went under in that first row, so that everything lines up. That's probably all I'm going to get in on this one, so let's bring that to the back. So we've got the cord actually showing, and I could pack it down tighter if I wanted to, but I think I quite like the look of that. So I'm just going to take my needle off and leave that hanging, and I'll tidy up those ends after. So next up we have a variation on the simple weave. So there's going to be a bit more texture in it. Okay, so yeah, so just creating sort of loops in the weft as we go across, and that's going to go in here. Got a bit of poofiness going on. So I'll just sort out some yarn for that. Hopefully this is more than I need. I did have to join a little bit in there. But, hopefully I won't need to do that for this section. Just, there we go. It's a loosely spun yarn, so you can just sort of pull it apart. But obviously every once in a while you run into a bit that's got a bit of twist in it. It makes it a little bit tougher to pull apart. Okay, so double-stranded. Okay. So I'm going to weave through the same way as I did for the plain. Until I've got as far as I can on that pass. Actually, go a little bit further. There we go, it's probably about as far as I can go on this one. So I'm going to pull that through, leaving the tail to weave in later. And then I'm going to just puff up these stitches a bit. So that they've got a bit of texture to them. I don't want to go huge because I want to keep in keeping with the rest of the project. So leave a little bit of a loop there as well. And I'm going to come up a bit further over, I think, for this one. I think the easiest way to do it is probably to go back here, just to make sure I'm following the pattern. Obviously want to make sure I don't pull that too tight. I'm going to repeat the process on the next row. So once I've got to the other side of this shape, which I think will be on this pass, I'll just turn round and come back the way I came. Because obviously these shapes are uneven, that's why I opted to have a long pass on the back. Okay. I'll puff up these stitches. I should probably have put more yarn on for this one. So obviously being textured, it does use up a bit more length. That should be just about, should have just about enough length to finish this off, I think. Because obviously the poofier stitches also fill up a bit more. Yep, happy with that. Okay, so take the needle off. And I've just got this section to do here, which will be sumac. So I'm going to thread my needle and remind myself how to do that stitch, and we'll get that done. Okay, so sumac is more of a by hand stitch, so we're wrapping around 2 cords at a time, all the way across, starting from the left, going to the right. And I'm probably going to have to go back in the other direction for the next row. So a bit more coverage with sumac than plain weave. I may need to do a new length of yarn for the second repass actually, but I probably will. So it's making this like rope kind of texture, and when you go back in the other direction you end up with like a braid. And also I've hooked the top of my work over the back of the chair just to raise it up a bit for ease of access. Okay, because I need obviously an end to weave in. I'm going to stop there and add in a new length. Hopefully this will be long enough to finish everything off. Okay, so here is my finished piece of macrame weaving. I just need to do a bit of tidying up for the fringe. I've deplied the lengths of cord at the bottom there. I've got another one to trim off there, at the tail that I've woven in. So I've woven in the ends, deplied the fringe at the bottom, so it gives slightly different texture. Yeah, so that needs a little bit of combing and zhuzhing, I think, and a little bit of tidying up at the bottom to make sure it's even. But I mean, otherwise it's done. So yeah, tidying up the fringe and putting on a hanging loop, and this will be ready to go on display. So yeah, not a long project to do, quite fun project to do. A nice little combination of the two different skills, and I like the way it's added a bit of colour to the project as well. I mean, obviously my edges aren't the neatest. I don't know whether they're meant to be perfectly straight in macrame or not, or macrame. I know some people say macrame, some people say macrame. I don't know which is correct. So yeah, I don't know if they're meant to be wibbly wobbly or if they're meant to be straight, but I don't mind them being wibbly wobbly. So there's just 2 knots involved with this one, the square knot and the clove hitch. And then there were 3 different ways of weaving, well, 2.5. Simple plain weave, and then one with a bit of texture, but it's essentially plain weave, and sumac there. So yeah, get that tidied up, and then I'll have to find somewhere to display it. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. In the meantime, there's this one here that may be of interest to you, and I will see you soon. But until then, happy crafting and bye-bye for now.